Hello and welcome back to the Motorsport Baithak podcast. I'm your host Didi, and joining me today once again is my friend and your co-host Vedant. On this episode, we'll be talking about the F1 2022 car launches and Andretti Global's bid to join F1 in 2024. So let's grab some chai, take our seats, ready our opinions, and dive right into the conversation. Hello Vedant. Obviously, we've been talking about the F1 car launches over the last week, but I've got to ask you, and I already know the answer to this question, but what comes to your mind when I simply mention F1 car launch for 2022?
Well, a red and black prancing horse is my answer, and you can lock it. But yeah, I mean,
I mean, yeah, I just can't. There has been a lot of conversation regarding, the technical design and the robustness of the design or whatever you want to call it. Whether that design speaks to us, if that makes sense or not, and things like that. But regardless of everything, technical, that car is just awesome. It's just amazing, and I just can't stop looking at that. I have to get off Twitter so I can stop looking at Ferrari images all day long.
yeah, I mean, it is a piece of beauty, and no, yeah, I mean, it's just to it's not a Formula One car when you first look at it. When I first looked at it, it looked like a concept. It looked like a you know CFD drawing which these companies release years and years before actual production of some variety of that starts. You know what I'm saying, right? So it looks
Yeah,
like a
yeah.
concept, but yeah, it's absolutely beautiful and strange at the same time what they have done.
Exactly. We'll talk about the Ferrari a little bit later, but let's just talk about the variety of concepts that we've seen across the board. Obviously, going into this season, everybody was saying that, the rules are too prescriptive. We're not going to see a lot of different designs. We're going to see some sort of convergence in the cars. But that is absolutely not the case. And how excited are you to see these cars on track? Obviously, we won't be seeing them in Barcelona in 3 days' time. We'll be seeing them in Bahrain in about a few weeks' time. But I just can't wait anymore.
Absolutely. I mean, I was so glad when the Haas came out and when the Aston Martin came out, and those two were different. But then I had a second thought that okay, maybe it's just the Haas being, not as competent. But then I think the next proper car to come out was McLaren, because Red Bull released just show car with their livery.
Yeah, it was just a
Yeah, so
livery
when
launch.
Aston Martin and McLaren were so different, that was when I actually got happy and I was actually satisfied. So it's great. It's great news for Formula One. It's great news for us fans, and I mean when fans can visually spot the differences between cars, it's always great. And especially since this is the start of an era, the differences are the differences are good. So there might be convergence towards, like, after a few years, but right now it's just great. It's just what Formula One is about: the pursuit for innovation and finding your best
Yeah,
solution.
clearly Vedant is very excited. Yes, clearly I get it. Vedant is very excited and he
Yeah.
can't stop talking about the cars that have been launched. I only have one small issue with these cars is that the nose sits really high. And I'm not sure that looks great in the pictures that we see, front on pictures of the cars. That is my only complaint. The Ferrari, for some reason, their nose was pretty low to the ground, like we've seen in past years. So it made for a great picture,
Yeah.
but I don't know if that will be the case when they actually run the car. So I hope the F1 directors and the TV broadcasters avoid that particular angle where the nose reminds me of the antelope noses from the 2010s era.
Yeah.
And I hope they just avoid that. Just show the car from the top, the sides, the back. Just don't show it
Yeah,
from
we
the front.
need.
But
Yeah.
anyway, let's talk about something that is more important. So one of the technical aspects that have been questioned with the design of these cars that have been released is the fact that obviously coming into the season, the technical regulations were meant to uh, help help overtaking during races. So the cars designs or the regulations were prescriptive in a way such that the designs coming out of these regulations would allow cars to overtake each other much better. It would reduce the dirty air for the car following, and it would basically help cars to follow throughout multiple corners instead of having no downforce on them and losing grip in the corners and things like that. Now people have come out and said that these designs that we've seen over the last week and a half do not seem to meet those intentions, that were laid out with these regulations. What are your thoughts on that? Because Ross Brown did come out and say that, there will still be some aspect of the rules and regulations that will allow for such, things like outwash and dirty air to be created, that will make, overtaking harder. But we're still moving in the right direction, and all of this is only a byproduct of, the teams chasing performance, and none of the teams are deliberately trying to sabotage the intentions of the rules.
Yeah, I mean, I'm no engineer and I'm not an expert in aerodynamics and whatever, but I think I can agree with Ross Brown, and I agree with Ross Brown because even with the previous regulations, the primary purpose was not to affect the car behind. The primary purpose was to chase performance. The primary purpose was to make these heavier cars faster, and since heavier cars with the batteries and all such things, so and the dirty air was just a byproduct of that philosophy. So I think it might be this case here as well. Hopefully Ross Brown is right and we can see better racing, because I am not an
Yeah,
expert in this.
yeah, yeah. Hopefully, we can whatever that impact is minimum, and we're still making a huge step towards making overtaking easy, making racing much more accessible, I guess, to the
Yeah.
drivers more than anyone else. But the only pain point we on this week has been the technical analysis that has been done on the Ferrari car that was launched earlier in the week. Now, obviously, the pundits have come out and said that it seems that the Ferrari car is disjointed, and it seems that they were pursuing two different concepts, and it doesn't seem like a whole car, and they're not sure what Ferrari is trying to do with that side pod design. Definitely a pain point. Like we said, we're not pundits, we're not in any way, technically experienced enough to make a comment on this. But that definitely hurts, and I hope that is not the case. And I hope Mattia Binotto has something up his sleeve that we cannot perceive from these pictures, that puts Ferrari, towards the top of the grid.
Well, you talk about the pain points that the journalists have brought up, but I read somewhere, and it was a little technical, so I don't remember it exactly. But basically the bird bath area on the side ports, that trench,
Valley.
the valley, yeah.
Yep.
So it does create hot air and higher air pressure or whatever, and
Yeah, no idea.
it might actually help create more suction to it on the ground. So there is, like, my point is that
There are different interpretations
different
of
interpretations,
the design.
and there is still support.
Definitely.
There is still support for the Ferrari interpretation. So yeah, hopefully Mattia Binotto is
Yeah,
right
I mean,
at the end.
absolutely. But I really think, that the Mercedes will still be the benchmark car this season. Their design seems to be more in line with what they have done over the last couple of years. And it does seem that, most people who have tried to interpret the design have been able to make more sense of it than any other car out there, especially compared to the Ferrari. Uh, but we'll see. Like you said, let's talk about some of the surprises that have come out, of the car launches this season. Especially the fact that why are teams releasing a different car? They're launching a different car, but at the same time releasing different renders of that car. Why? Why would they do that to us? Williams, a Mercedes. Why? Why would they do that?
Well,
Because it is so confusing when you wake up at 5 a.m. when the car launch has already either happened or is about to happen, to go through that and spend the next hour painfully going, searching the internet for the actual photos of the car.
yeah, I'm confused. I'm as confused as you, and I see those cars at 6:30 in the evening. So there's no complaints there, right? I mean, too many complaints there as such. But I think what the teams are trying to do is pursue variety. We talked about variety, and some teams thought, okay, like one car is not enough, man. 10 cars are not enough. 10 cars are not enough variety, so they decided to produce a few more. But yeah,
Uh,
I don't know.
and then on the same lines, the teams have, in my opinion, it seems that the teams have been doing a lot more social media engagement with these car photos and release renders and whatnot, and actual videos of the cars on track during shakedown than in the previous years. Especially a team like Ferrari, who barely had a social media account a couple years ago, has probably produced more content than any other team over the last week. And it almost seems backwards. And the only team operating, I guess, in accordance with the old guidelines of not sharing any technical information, any photos or videos of your new car, is Red Bull. And the only photos that we have of the actual Red Bull car are in less than 240p resolution.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I
Clearly, none of the photographers, inside those factories have an iPhone or a Samsung Galaxy or something like that to click a proper picture.
mean, yeah, it's actually interesting because with the new rules, you would expect that teams hide as much as they can. Because even last year and year before that, when the rules were not that new, but there was still a few tweaks, the teams hid a lot. They used to black out the entire images, and we remember people brightening that image to just see, the paintbrush tool on Photoshop applied there, basically. So,
I mean, yeah, there is still some of that happening, but still surprising, yeah.
I mean, that much
But
engagement is certainly new, even for the Liberty Media era in Formula One.
absolutely, absolutely. But I think, we've talked about the car launches. Obviously, we haven't gone in detail because what do we know?
Yeah.
Honestly. But I think one thing that, that has been pointed out by all the teams but there hasn't been a lot of conversation revolving around it is because of the lack of knowledge is the fact that obviously there has been a huge regulatory change regarding the chassis, the aero and things like that. But one of the biggest changes coming this season is also the introduction of the 10% ethanol fuel, which has resulted in huge architectural changes for some teams and a lot of other changes, smaller changes for a few of the other teams with their engines. We heard from Mercedes, they have had to change a lot of components, they said. Ferrari has, gone ahead and redesigned their entire engine. They have a lot more development coming in that is drastic and things like that. So it will be also interesting to see how the performance levels vary for these new engines almost, with this new fuel that is being introduced into Formula One, and that is something that we won't know about. We'll be able to measure the performance in bits and pieces going into the season, but we won't have a clear picture of it for I guess until the end of the season.
Yeah, and I mean, especially with the engine freeze kicking in two steps, of one on 1st March and one in mid June, I suppose. There are two steps based on the components, right? So
Yeah.
even like, especially with this engine freeze coming in, the teams are going all in. We know that Honda has agreed to make that engine for Red Bull. We know Ferrari has been working on that engine for quite a while now. So yeah, I mean, it's apart from obviously the aero part of it, the engine part is as important and rightly pointed out by you. Absolutely.
Yeah, and taking everything into consideration, the reason I commented previously is I commented that I still believe that Mercedes will be the car to beat is not because of the fact that they had the best engine the year before, or they had the best car the year before or anything like that. I commented that because of the fact that Mercedes is I think an 8-time consecutive world champion team, in the constructors championship, and the only way that comes about is not by just having a great car, but by having the right tools and processes and the people in the right place. And a lot of the other teams that are trying to be a title challenger have gone restructure or are pursuing crazy ideas like Ferrari or McLaren, who've had a restructure in the recent years, Williams and Alpine and teams like that. And it'll be a little more difficult for them to achieve the absolute performance compared to a team who has the best tools and processes, which has brought them success in the recent years. Which is why I'll reiterate the fact that I still think Mercedes will be the benchmark team going into the 2022 season.
Yeah, absolutely.
Now Red Bull is a different story because we haven't heard anything from them.
Yeah, I mean, and even if Mercedes are not the benchmark team for a minute, let's assume that they would still be in the fight, because you remember in 2014 Red Bull were dominant for the last 4 years, lost, and even 2009 they were a strong car. But in 2014, while Mercedes was dominating, Red Bull was a close second, because Mercedes had made the most of these new regulations, but Red Bull had that knowledge and that processes and tools, as you said, and resources from the last 4 seasons.
I mean, yeah, that's the reason Red Bull has been competitive ever since 2009, like you pointed out, and they haven't slipped
Yeah.
away like Ferrari did a couple years ago.
Absolutely.
But I think that's all about the new car launches and things like that. We're gonna wait for further analysis or further conversation regarding the new cars until after the first round of testing at least, which is literally next week. So not
This
a
week
lot of
it's
wait
in
there.
fact,
But let's
yeah.
talk about this week itself. Yeah, but let's talk about the bigger news coming out of the F1 cam, and that is the fact that Andretti Global put in a bid to join F1 in 2024, but the FIA came out and said that it is not interested in a new team joining anytime soon, which is very surprising, especially given the fact that the Andretti or the members of the Andretti team and family have come out and said that they have a great plan, everything is in place, and they're ready to go into production and whatever that is required as soon as the FIA approves their bid. And they also apparently said that they'll field a team in F2 and F3 following, and all obviously this is all happening following the failed Sauber deal. So this begs the question: why is FIA not interested, especially when this is a time when they're trying to capture the American audience and grow within USA?
Yeah, I think as you just pointed out, that for the American audience, for growing in USA, it is such a great opportunity for Formula One to capture that. And because Andretti are not another name in racing, Andretti are the name in American motorsports, right? And to have them in
It's a
Formula
dynasty
One,
of racing. It's not just a name in racing. It's equivalent to having a Ferrari join IndyCar almost.
yeah, absolutely. And to have Andretti in Formula One will bring, in my opinion, will bring in more eyeballs to Formula One, like will bring in more US eyeballs to Formula One than the US GP did, because Andretti has been a part of American motorsports for such a long time. But it's interesting that the FIA have straight out rejected their approach. Basically, they have laid out the reasons that they are not looking for a new team, but surely 22 cars are better than 20 in Formula 1. And if
Obviously
if Andretti can display that they will be competitive, they'll be financially stable, and they have the right processes, they should at least be considered.
absolutely. And, I would love to see another team, especially Andretti in F1. I think everybody would love to, have another American driver, probably Colton Herta, on the grid, and basically check all the boxes that F1 has been trying to check over the last few years, especially ever since Liberty came in. Again, very interesting to see such a straightforward response from the FIA. And I think Scott Mitchell from the race posed a very interesting question on Twitter, and he said, what if the proposal made by Andretti, is not in alignment with what F1 actually needs a proposal to be? That is to say, that the Andretti team might think that it is checking FIA's boxes, F1's boxes, and they might think that they're ready to go, but the FIA might not share that same view on the issue.
Yeah, that's definitely an interesting idea, basically, because more or less that's what happened with the Sauber deal, right? Andretti thought that they were doing things a certain way and they had checked some boxes. Sauber, while accepting those boxes, did not feel the same way. So I think that can be the case once again. But so the last time for a team joined Formula One was Haas, and that time FIA had been looking for teams, because I think Marussia had just been sent into administration or bankruptcy, and they were looking for a new team. And even before that, the last time a new teams joined Formula One was when Renault, HRT, and I think Caterham or Morosio or someone joined Formula One. And that time as well, Formula One was looking for new teams. And remember that those times we had 12 teams in Formula One instead of the current 10. So it just may be the fact that Formula One are not looking for a team, and FIA are not looking for a team. That may just be the real truth. But then again, if Formula One wants to grow in the USA, there can't be a better opportunity for this.
Yeah, like you said, there can't be a better opportunity. And like you pointed out before that, the FIA might just not be looking for more teams. F1 might not be looking for more teams. And obviously, this is all coming in the face of, F1 becoming a more sustainable sport financially, becoming a more profitable sport for all the brands and, companies, organizations involved in the sport. So it might also be the fact that, these F1 stakeholders have finally been able to bring the sport to such a place where, it has become profitable for 10 teams to sustain themselves, and they might not want someone else to come and take advantage of what has just been put into place, and any other interested parties might just have to wait another 5 to 10 years in order to have the opportunity to join the sport. Now obviously for the fans, it'll be a hard pill to swallow, especially for American fans in this case, but again, this is not something that is in the hands of solely one body or organization running the sport.
Yeah, absolutely. But I mean, I think what Andretti can do is get a tie-up with Haas, because Haas are clearly struggling. Andretti are clearly confident of their new Formula One project, be it buying a new team or whatever, entering a new team or buying an existing team. So I think they can strike a deal with Haas, have a Haas Andretti in Formula One, have an American driver come up, and go that way. But definitely and for sure, the Formula 2 and Formula 3 teams are a great step, because we have seen American drivers struggle in the junior categories in Europe, and to have Andretti there would be a great step for them.
Absolutely. So yeah, obviously, we'll have to see how the story evolves, if it evolves any further, if there is more conversation regarding this. But as a fan, all I can say is, it'll be nice to see it'll be nice to have the Andretti name in Formula One.
Yeah, absolutely.
Obviously, all of this also comes in the face of Porsche and Audi trying to join Formula One as engine manufacturers at the moment. So, F1, there might be more conversation in the background that we as fans are not aware of, that F1 might be involved in. So that might be another reason why F1 is not looking for maybe a 13th team to join the sport before they close out the Porsche and Audi deals. But definitely a lot of conversation that we're not aware of, a lot of speculation, and a lot of news that needs to come out before the season starts. I'm honestly surprised at the amount of developments that have been over the last 2 weeks. I really thought that it would be a quieter time in F1, and I would be able to enjoy other sports like NASCAR and IndyCar that are starting off a little bit earlier. But clearly that is not the case. But that doesn't mean I'm complaining. I'm still happy. The more, the merrier. So more for us to enjoy. But that is all from my side, Vedant. Anything else that you would like to point out or touch upon before we wrap up this podcast?
Well, no, because I think we have talked about everything we can talk about before the first preseason test in Formula 1 2022. New cars, new technical and new sporting regulations, and new financial regulations as well. We have now just a $145 or $140 million cost cap, reduced from last year basically. So yeah, exciting times in Formula 1. And Lewis Hamilton just came out of the social media sabbatical.
How did we miss that?
Yes. The
Yes.
press sabbatical, the public figure sabbatical basically. And I think he looks hungrier than ever.
Yeah, and he look, I told you, Lewis is gonna come out hungrier. People don't believe me, and I'm gonna say there's no question he's coming back, and that's exactly what he said in his press conference, and and things like that. And he came out and said, if you thought what you saw from me last season was my best, you have no idea what is coming, or something along the lines of that he's gonna be better than ever. And I pray for George Russell that he's able to match that.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, George,
More than anyone else on
Yeah.
the grid, I pray for George Russell that he has a relatively good season and is not overshadowed by whatever Lewis is bringing this season.
yeah, absolutely. I mean, George is a great driver, but if at all he might race well, he might give it his best, and his individual performances might be the best a driver can produce, basically. But if he is up against Lewis Hamilton, and if Lewis Hamilton just dominates and just kills the sport, basically,
Like you said,
yeah, it's going to be very hard for George
Like you
to
said.
solo that.
Taps into God mode,
Yeah.
taps into hammer time 24/7. But yeah, exactly. I'll pray for George Russell. But yeah, that's definitely all from our side for this podcast. Obviously, we'll be doing more F1 stuff as the season rolls in. We'll be talking about the different drivers, the different teams, what we expect from this season, and things like that, and make some bold yet stupid predictions going into the season. But stay tuned for all of that on this channel. Thank you, Vedant, for joining me once again. It's always a pleasure talking about motorsport with you, and we'll catch you on the next one.
Yeesh.